Good morning and welcome to our meeting of the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee. May I welcome officials from the Ministry of Finance, Investments Division, the Ministry of Works and Transport, and of course, the National Infrastructure Development Company Limited, NIDCO. Thank you for coming. My name is Wade Mark. I am the chairman of this committee. Let me just indicate that our committee has a mandate under the Republican Constitution to consider and report to the House of Representatives on the following: the audited accounts, balance sheets, and other financial statements of all enterprises that are owned or controlled by or on behalf of the state. The Auditor General's report on any such accounts, balance sheets, and other financial statements, and whether policy is being carried out efficiently, effectively, and economically, and whether expenditure conforms to the authority which governs it. Now, the purpose of our meeting today, that is the purpose of our Public Accounts Enterprises Committee meeting today, is to conduct an examination into the PAEC report on NIDCO from the first session of the 11th Parliament on the audited financial statements for the financial years 2009 to 2013, as well as an examination of NIDCO'S audited financial statements for the years 2014 to 2017, and to look at the Joint Select Committee on State Enterprises report from the second session of the 12th Parliament into the operation of NIDCO, including compulsory acquisition in relation to major projects. Our committee is desirous of hearing the challenges being faced by the key stakeholders at NIDCO in an attempt to determine some of the possible solutions to these challenges. May I emphasize that the role of our committee is to help improve NIDCO in its delivery of services in an efficient, effective, and economical way. That is important to take note of. May I also advise that our proceedings is being held in public and is and will be broadcast live on Parliament's Channel 11 at a later date. It will also be aired on Parliament's YouTube channel, ParlView. And viewers and listeners can also send their comments related to today's proceedings to our email address, which is parl101@ttparliament.org, or Facebook, that is facebook.com/ttparliament, or Twitter @ttparliament. I would like at this time to invite my colleagues to formally introduce themselves, starting immediately on my right, and then I'll ask my colleagues on the left thereafter to do the same.
Hi, good morning. Rashtan Pari, Vice Chairman.
Good morning and welcome. Laura Lizama Leasing, Member.
Good morning. Amrita Devanarayan, Member.
Thank you very much. I will now invite our representatives, officials who are here, starting in the following order. The Ministry of Finance, then the Ministry of Works and Transport, to be followed by NIDCO in terms of introductions.
Good morning, Ryan Maharaj, Senior Business Analyst, Investments Division, Ministry of Finance.
Good morning, Sharon Mohammed, Director, Agro-Based Manufacturing and Services Sector, Investments Division, Ministry of Finance.
Good morning, Sonia Francis here with Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Works and Transport.
Welcome.
Good morning, Wesley Gatchner, Legal Officer 1, Ministry of Works and Transport.
Good morning, Herbert George, Chairman of NIDCO.
Welcome.
Good morning, Esther Farmer, President, NIDCO.
Welcome. Thank you so very much.
Morning.
We have one more person. Sorry about that.
Morning,
My
Ravi.
apologies.
No problem. Morning.
Mr. Herbert is blocking your view. My view, I should say. But go ahead. Thank you.
Morning, Ravi Sriram, Manager, Finance, Corporate Planning and Risk, NIDCO.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. May I now invite a representative from the Ministry of Finance, Investment Division, to make a very brief opening statement, no more than 2 minutes.
Good morning again, Chairman and members. I thank you for the invitation to attend this morning's committee meeting with the National Infrastructure Development Company Limited. The Investments Division of the Ministry of Finance is responsible for executing the investment policy as prescribed by Cabinet. Accordingly, the mandate of the division includes oversight, monitoring, and when necessary, the rationalization of government's equity holdings in commercial enterprises. Additionally, the division acts on behalf of the Minister of Finance, Corporation Sole, and carries out the corporate function. This includes representation of the Minister at shareholders meeting, establishment of new state enterprises, and divestment of state enterprises where it becomes feasible to do so. NIDCO was established in January 2005 as a special purpose state enterprise. The company was created to increase the rate of implementation of the government's expanded public sector investment program and to undertake projects in areas critical to the overall national development. We look forward to today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. May I invite the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Works and Transport to make a few opening remarks, please?
Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. As indicated by the Ministry of Finance, NIDCO was established in 2005 as a special purpose state enterprise company. NIDCO resides under the line Ministry of Works and Transport. The Ministry of Works and Transport seeks to do its monitoring duty in, as it relates to the state enterprises performance monitoring manual and necessary financial regulations and requirements. The Ministry thanks the committee for the invitation this morning and stands ready to provide any information that may be required in keeping with the committee's mandate as identified at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Herbert George, Chairman of NIDCO.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. NIDCO welcome the opportunity to appear before you to give account, to answer the questions that will be posed to us, and so that, through you, we'll be able to inform the general public. We are committed to answering all questions that are posed to us thoroughly and truthfully. And where we are unable to provide you with answers here, we'll undertake to furnish the answers in writing at a later date. Through you, Mr. Chairman, we will seek your leave to defer questions that deal with operations to the President. She might be better able to answer those questions. Those that deal with finances to Mr. Siram, who I'm blocking, and those that deal with projects, I will attempt to answer them. And wherever necessary, we will defer to one another through you, Mr. Chairman. So we are committed to answering your questions, and we look forward to the session that we are now entering into. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Mr. Hilbert. I remember when, as a member of another joint select committee, which is the one that deals with state enterprises, I was present when you were present. I think Mrs. Farmer would have been there, and as you said, you provide us with a lot of information. So I know that that is one thing that I can say about NIDCO. You provide the information, and you try to provide answers truthfully and to the best of your ability. So what I would say at this time, we have with us a colleague, Mr. Keith Scotland, but he has to run off to another meeting. So I am deferring to him at this time, asking him to lead the charge in seeking clarification on some matters that is really of interest to our committee. So I'll now invite Mr. Scotland to take the floor and to proceed at this time.
Very much obliged to you, Mr. Chairman. The audited financial statements of NIDCO have not been submitted from 2019 to date. I noted in your response on the 4th of May, the document provided, particularly at pages 16, where we asked questions 24 to 26 based on the second report of the Joint Select Committee, and at page 21, you stated that the non-submission of the company's audited financial statements resulted from the following reasons. The occurrence of the COVID-19 pandemic was the first one that was advanced. Could you elaborate, not too long, but about 3 to 4 sentences, what you mean by that? The occurrence of the COVID. I mean, it occurred, but how do you link that to the non-provision of these mandatory audited financial statements?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, may I defer to Mr. Siram, the financial?
Yes, of course.
And short answers, please.
Morning to the member.
Morning.
When the COVID pandemic hit, it actually hit the mid. Sorry about that. When the COVID pandemic hit, it actually hit NIDCO in the middle of the 2018 audit exercise. Because of the changes that had to be made to operations, and not being able to be physically there, it affected the submission of information and even the way the auditors were approaching the job. And that led to a setback to the deadlines.
The second
Before you go on to the second reason, Mr. Siram, TSTT is 49% owned by the state and by private sector forces.
Yeah.
But they are come to this committee, and I must indicate for the record, they are up to date. In spite of COVID, they are up to date. And I can tell you, TSTT is only one of many. There's another company called Trinidad and Tobago Mortgage Finance Company Limited, another state-owned company through the National Insurance Board. And they too are up to date. So I think that we have to bear in mind that something seemed to be a little more than the ordinary that could have allowed such a prestigious company as NIDCO, right, not to produce its financials. And the submission that you have made, I just wanted to just bring to the attention of this body, this committee, that there are other state entities and enterprises that are on the mark and on the ball as it relates to their timely submission. So I just wanted to add to what you have.
Chairman, and I would, and tell us for the record, because remember you were speaking to the public, through you, Chairman, you did indicate that the audited financial statements for 2019 will be submitted by the 31st of May 2023. Is that still an accurate projection?
Mr. Sierra, or you will speak, sir?
Yes. As it is right now, the 2019 audited financial statements are currently with our auditors, PKF. It's about 95% completed. We are expecting it to be completed by the 31st of May, based on any information that they bring forward from their finalization. That could shift that deadline, but as it is right now, that is what we are projecting.
So, can I glean that the short answer is yes, you're still on target for the 2019 audited financial statements to be submitted by the 31st of May?
Yes.
My next question, I have noted at paragraph, at page 21 of your response, that you indicated that one of the other reasons is that NIDCO had to change the external auditors from Deloitte to PKF, yes?
Yes.
My question to you as we interrogate that explanation is, before the change though, wasn't Deloitte engaged? So yes, you change, but weren't they already engaged in some audit, let's say for 2019?
No, their engagement was specifically for 30th September 2018.
So when PKF came about, they are now undertaking 2019, which is projected to be ready, according to you, by the 31st of May 2023.
Yes.
Could you tell us, when did PKF come on board?
Right. Short answer is PKF came on board in October 2022. There is some issues that happened before that. One of that is because of the delay in having the audited financials ready, we were unable to have, and again the COVID-19 situation, we were unable to have our annual general meeting, at which we would have appointed PKF and accepted the 2018 from Deloitte. The decision was taken by the Ministry of Finance that in lieu of an AGM, that a special resolution will be passed allowing for the appointment of PKF. That happened in February 22. That's when we actually got the document from Ministry of Finance. And we subsequently engaged PKF because of their established timelines and the bookings they had for clients and so on. Their earliest start date available to them was October 22.
So if we can, Chairman, reconstruct the timelines, it is that Deloitte went out and no longer were engaged, from 2018.
No.
They did the last audited financial statements, but they were no longer engaged from 2022, correct?
2022, yes.
And thereafter...
Sorry, that would be 2021. Right.
And thereafter, PKF, under a special resolution from the corporation sole, came in, but that was issued in August 2022. And PKF, because of their other commitments, their pre-existing commitments, came on board in October 2022.
Yeah.
My question to you is, and maybe I should address this to the investment division of the ministry, why did this take so long? Why wasn't there some symmetry? Resolution, appointment of new auditors.
Thank you, member, for the question. The request for new auditors came in 2022, and it was dealt with in August 2022 when the Minister of Finance signed the resolution. So from there on, they had auditors on board, as Mr. Siriam said, from October 2022.
So the request came in 2022, and in 2022, the Minister of Finance came on. Chairman, you see, and through you, Chairman, when we don't get those timelines, it leaves a lacuna in our minds, and we think, well, something is amiss between 2020, or in fact 2018, and 2022, where there is an explanation. Chairman, if you read the documents that we have received, you will not know that, you will not get that nexus until you come here and we interrogate. My last question comes...
Before you go to your last question.
Yes, Chairman.
May I ask Mr. Siram or Mr. Herbert George, what precisely happened, again, just to clarify, between 2019 to 2022, that hiatus where we had almost 4 years, and during that 4-year period, from what I am picking up, and clarify it for me if I'm wrong, Deloitte would have left their last audited accounts for this company was in 2018. When did they physically leave the compound? First, well, let me just back. When did they complete their 2018 audited financial accounts for NIDCO? When? What day? What year?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, the 2018 audited financial statements was completed and signed off in October 2021.
No, that's the question. That's the question. Why that gap? Because NIDCO is supposed to be a reputable state company. You deal with billion-dollar projects, although you don't receive an annual allocation from the state. You get management fees, you get supervisory fees. Why this gap between 2018 and 2021? So, last accounts, 2018, Deloitte, but they actually signed off on the audited accounts in 2021. Why this gap? We are trying to clarify why the gap.
Right, so the audited, for the year end, 30th September 2018, that audited, the auditing process would have started maybe around January 2019. I was not there at the time, but I'm just judging by the norm in the process. That would have started like around January 2019 or after. And subsequent to that, there were two major issues. Again, one, COVID-19 happening around late 2019. And also, there were some staffing issues that NIDCO experienced. Before me, the previous manager of finance would have come in, I think, around 2019. So there was some time when they were without a manager of finance. So that'll be between the 2018-2019 period. COVID would have hit around late 2019. And then after that, subsequent to the signing off of the 2018 financials in October 2021, the then manager of finance resigned. I came in on December 21. So I would say it's a combination of the COVID and the staffing challenges that NIDCO would have had at the time.
I'm not happy with that answer, but I am not pursuing it at this moment because my colleague is on the floor. Keith Scotland can continue.
We know that by Act number 5 of 1973, Chapter 6903, that
you might. Yeah.
We know that by Act number 5 of 1973, Chapter 6903, that the Minister of Finance was incorporated as corporation sole. But flowing from that in the investment division, and I've read the State Enterprises Performance Monitoring Manual, that the investment division is responsible for executing the investment policy as prescribed by Cabinet. Accordingly, the mandate of the division includes oversight, monitoring, and where necessary, the rationalization of the government's equity holdings in commercial enterprises, and the division particularly acts on behalf of the Minister of Finance and carries out corporate functions. That being said, don't you, and I want to ask this both of NIDCO and of the investment division, don't you think that there ought to be more synergies, more streamlining, more connection, less lag in the line and the timelines and communication between the division and state enterprises, and in this case, NIDCO? Chairman, as I ask, can I have an answer, please, from the division, and then...
Thank you, member, again for the question. First of all, the investments division monitor, and our monitoring is limited to the state enterprises performance monitoring manual. However, our role is to ensure that the company has an auditor in place. So when they submitted their request to change auditors, we oblige and we approve the new auditors. However, what I want to say is that the pace at which the company will work at, we can only work at that pace. And the length of time the auditors will take to audit the accounts is something management and the board will have to discuss with the auditors to speed up that process.
And Chairman, through you.
Mr. Chairman, there's something else that occurred to us as the board.
Yes.
Without casting aspersions on the auditing company, we found that the previous audits were done quicker than the 2018. At that time, it was clear that we were about to change auditors because they had served NIDCO for the previous, I think, 5 years. So they were due to be changed, and they knew that. So they were very, I might say, very meticulous. And I give you an example. Previously, there were a set of accounts that were not reconciled. The board recognized that, and the board said, but that is not good enough. Those things should be reconciled. And of course, that took a while. So all those things came together. We had a perfect storm there. The auditor is being changed. So they are dotting their I's and crossing their T's. And of course, the earlier reasons given COVID and other things. So that, from where we sit, seems to summarize what happened that caused that delay in 2018.
Thank you. Chairman, through you, may I seek your leave to be relieved to go to another meeting which I chair right next door. Thank you.
I'll ask Mr. Rushton to just follow up on some questions.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have two questions. One that is going to tally off what Mr. Scotland had started, and a separate question. Now, Chairman had indicated that there are a lot of other enterprises that have come before us, and they've delivered on their statements, they delivered on their accounting data and so on. COVID was not an issue for them, in terms of, the delivery of these reports. Now, I'm hearing that COVID would have created some delay. And I am assuming that it is because of perhaps company policy in terms of how you would have operated during that COVID period. You may have had the human resource issues in terms of getting the actors together, the data together to do these reports. Now, the question that I have, and if I could refer you back to your submission appendix 1, where you presented your income and expenditure for 2016 to 2022. And if I were to draw your attention to years 2019 and 2020, at 52 million in 2019 and 45 million in 2020. Now I'm assuming this is income based on work that had to be performed for you to achieve that income. Now if there is company policy at the very highest level that is hampering the delivery of these accounting statements and so on, clearly that is not an issue at the lower level because work is happening. Because when you look at your jump from 2018 to 19 by $20 million, it tells me that work was apace in 2019 and 2020. So again, the excuse or the condition of COVID, clearly it wasn't hampering the work at the lower level. And something as important as the audited statements, which is mandated by the State Enterprises Manual to be delivered within a specific time frame in the following year. I want to agree with our chairman that, to me, that COVID excuse does not hold water because clearly the business of NIDCO is operating. And when you look at the jump, there was clearly an increase in the business activities of NIDCO during the 2019 and 2020 period. How would you account for that if, as you just agreed with me, when I asked if it would have been company policy in how the human interaction during COVID would have happened? How do you explain that at the top level it was not happening because of that, but at the bottom level clearly work was happening? So is there any explanation for that in terms of what you just agreed to in terms of policy that would have hampered the delivery of these accounting reports?
That question is directed at?
Anybody, and probably Mr. George or even the gentleman behind him who's in charge of the
Mr. George,
accounting.
would you like to answer? You want Mr. Siram to answer?
Yes, yeah. Right, and thank you, member, for the question. We need to separate. Oh, it's on red. You're hearing me now? Yes. Okay. So let's separate the revenue from the operations. Now, the revenue would be generated by the construction activity that is happening outside of NIDCO's offices, which would not have the same impact or be affected by the administration staff, especially in the finance department. When COVID hit, it would have, no one was expecting it, and there were certain changes that had to be made. The audit process itself is very paper-based in terms of the verification of documents and so on. So we were forced to deal with a situation where you have no staff in an office. There couldn't be, there was lockdowns and so on. There was limited number of staff that could be in an assigned area. and you physically need to get these documents, scan these documents, then send it to the auditors. Even in terms of getting their responses for confirming receipt of the documents and so on is something that had to be worked out on NIDCO's side, and I would expect that the auditors themselves would have had to make certain provisions, and that would have slowed down the entire process, because as you could clearly guess, if you're looking at over in 2018 $30 million in revenue, the large amount of documentation that would have had to be verified and so on by the auditors. And these are things that we now would have had to change our existing process to be able to submit some of these things electronically in a time where you were unable to have huge amounts of staff to speed up the process. So again, a short answer, just to summarize, to ensure that I'm clear on my response. The revenue generation that is hinged on the construction, which would have been outside of NIDCO's offices and so on, and the audited financials would have been done by the admin staff inside of the admin offices where we had these restrictions. So it's two separate operating.
Sure. Chair, just continue on two questions on that.
Mr. Chairman,
sure.
With your permission, may I just add to what Mr. Siram just said? The large management fees, revenue from management fees that we realized in 2019 and 2020 was largely due to the procurement of the vessels, and so that would have given us a sizable income from the procurement of those vessels. So that is why we had that large increase in those 2 years.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your response again, which was on page 5 of your document, question 5, there's a cost-cutting plan that you put in place, which clearly we see in the appendix on the expenditure. You moved from 2015 from 66 million to 2022 to 36 million, which clearly is in sync with your cost-cutting exercise. However, outside of 2019 and 20, which you've indicated was primarily because of the purchase of the two marine vessels, what specific plans have NIDCO put in place to boost revenue going forward? Because of outside of that little glitch with the acquisition, the revenue really has remained flat basically during the period, during your cost-cutting exercise. Has NIDCO put anything in place, or are you putting anything in place to ramp that revenue side of the equation going forward?
Mr. Chairman, NIDCO is in a peculiar place. It is wholly owned, as we know, as a state enterprise, and all our projects are assigned to us by government. So we cannot take independent action, as it were, to increase our throughput by going out there and winning jobs. The most that we can do is to ensure that we maintain an establishment that does not use up all the oxygen in the room, do not take up whatever management fees that we get. So we have to keep a lean operation, be efficient, yes, so that we can satisfy our client and keep that lean operation. So that is what we have been doing, keeping things lean and being efficient in the work that we do.
Okay, Mr. Chair, just one question, last question for this round. And if I were to draw back your attention to page 2 of your submission, it would have been question 1 that we would have asked. In your submissions, you indicated that in 2018, NIDCO was given responsibility of procuring, maintaining, and managing the new vessels operating the inter-island sea bridge. My question to you, Mr. George or Mr. can't see the name in the back. The workload, I think, would have increased based on this new portfolio of maintaining procuring, managing vessels, which I would think may not have been in your wider portfolio in terms of construction, project management, and so on. What effect did that have on NIDCO in terms of this new activity, this new role in terms of this maritime management type of services? How did that affect NIDCO going forward? Or has it affected you going forward?
Mr. Chairman, no, it has not affected us. So what we did, we spoke with our, the PATT, for example, and we decided on the retention of a ship management company, which we went out and we procured. So we do have in place a ship management company in the name of Matrix, and Matrix is providing the ship management for those vessels. And what does that mean? So Matrix provides, let me just go to my notes here. The captain, the chief engineer, third engineer, chief officer, and second officer. So a team of 6 members, as outlined. So they provide those 6 members on the APT James. The same thing is done on the Buku, and they provide 2 members, the captain and the chief engineer, on the Galleon's Passage. And those, that nucleus is complemented with locals to make up the manning, the safe manning teams. And Matrix is therefore charged with sort of improving the equipment availability, so they have to maintain those vessels, the extended, so that they can extend the equipment life, lower maintenance costs, so all those objectives are being met by the ship management company that we have procured. Additionally, we have taken on, we have an arrangement with the OEM, the original equipment manufacturer, that is MAN. They are responsible for the main propulsion engines. So we have a service from them to monitor those engines in real time and to flag any issues that they might discover. So we are using that. So what is NIDCO doing? NIDCO is maybe orchestrating those moves, but it does not mean an increase in our manpower requirement as far as the establishment is concerned.
My other colleagues have joined. I just only want to further pursue clarification. I wanted to ask, when would NIDCO be able to complete and submit to the Minister of Finance, and of course through him to the House of Representatives, the outstanding financial audited statements? We're talking about 2019, it's due at the end of this month. What about 2020, 2021, and 2022?
Right.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we have included a schedule on our written submission, page 21, and we will honor those dates there. So 2019 by May, end of May this year, and the 2020 and 21 February 2024. So by that time, all outstanding audited financial statements will be submitted.
No, we have 19 at the end of this month.
May,
Then
yes.
we have 20 and 21 at the end of February next year.
Yes, because...
And when is 22 due?
That'll be in, well,
Well,
due
immediate, yeah.
2023. But what we have started preliminary discussions with...
No, Let me just repeat what I've said, Mr. Herbert. I understand what you have said, right? That by the end of May the 31st, we would have the 2019. What you have also said is that by the end of February 2024, we'll have 2020 and 2021. I'm just asking, would 2022 also be completed by the end of February of 2024?
No, Chairman. Immediately after the submission of 2020 and 2021, the auditors will start on 2022. We anticipate, a period of about 6 months to have that statement ready. So if we are, February 2024, 6 months thereafter, at worst, will be 2022.
Yeah, and
August.
And when are you going to come up to your current status? In other words, 2023 financials, are they going to be submitted when they are due under the State Enterprise Performance Manual?
We will work towards that.
At least we have those that are outstanding. They're working on them feverishly, based on what you have said. But when you are going to come up to the current situation, particularly with your 2023, which would be due, as you know, financially by around March of 2024.
Yeah.
Would that 23 be there? Or are we going to kick the can down the road to 2025 for 2023?
No, Mr. Chairman. We will work towards getting it ready and submitted when it becomes due. Now that we have this auditor on board, and we are not about to change the auditor, we think we'll get his cooperation to work on those statements and have them submitted on time. So the short answer is yes, we will work towards having 2023 done and submitted on time.
Could you tell this committee what were there other factors leading to the removal or the change, I should say, of your external auditors, Deloitte, or was it simply as a result of that 5-year gap or period allowed under the Companies Act, or in accordance with the Performance Manual?
There were no other factors, Chairman. We were just going in accordance with that requirement.
Okay. Now I saw where, and tell me if I'm wrong, where the audited accounts for 2019, 2019, I think. 2019 is due at the end of this month. Am I right?
Yes, Chairman.
The sum paid to PKF, is it $420,750 for their services in that regard?
Mr. Chairman, I'll defer to Mr. Ravi.
That is their total fees for the 2019 audit.
Is that the total payment for the 2019?
Well, that is the total fees. The fees for the audit of the 2019 statement is 420.
Is that 420,750?
Right. Yes.
Right. What would be the fees for 2020, 2021, and 2022?
Well, I wouldn't be able to answer that as yet. This is the first year that PKF is conducting the audit. The 2019, they would have had to basically do an entire walkthrough of the system, detail our processes, and so on. It is the expectation that going forward, 2020, 2021, they would not have to do that level of documenting because of we haven't made major changes to the processes and so on. So I think we may be able to have some cost savings based on the learning curve, but I wouldn't be able to come to the committee with a precise figure on that as yet, but I expect it to be within the same range.
May I ask, Mr. Herbert, for 2019, was PKF paid in advance of preparing the financial audited accounts on behalf of NIDCO? Was it done at coming to the conclusion? Because you have a figure, so I don't know if the figure was just an agreement or there's a contractual obligation signed off by NIDCO that the value for the completion of the audited accounts for NIDCO for 2019 is 420,000. I'm not too sure if it was paid before, if it was paid in the middle, if it was paid at the end. I'm not too sure. I'm just trying to clarify.
Right. Can I take this one? Member, so just to double check, you're referring to question 28, right? Whereas 420, 750, dollars, 420,000. Right. That is the cost of the entire exercise, the cost of the engagement, right?
Has that cost? Has
420,000
NIDCO paid?
No.
So that is coming at the end of his job.
Right. There will be interim billings. Yes.
Okay, I understand. That's what I was trying to get clarified, so that we know what's going on. I have a couple of questions, but I want to invite my colleagues, the Honorable Laurel Lezama, followed by Amrita Dionarai, and I will come back with some other questions.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Good morning again, members, and welcome. And I want to thank you all very much for the service that NIDCO provides. As a user of some of your services very regularly, I am quite satisfied at the service provided and the level of convenience. I want to take us away from the accounts for a little while. I want to speak about your internal auditing. You've sent in the document that you presented. I want to turn straight to Appendix 6.1, which speaks about the financial statement and reporting audit summit. Financial statement and reporting audit summary of audit findings. And you said, in here you said that the board requested an audit of the finance department with specific reference to how things are operationalized basically within that finance department. I noted that a level 2 was granted to following that audit, which is weak, major improvement required. And I note as well that a number of things have been given a response and a timeline, but the timelines are dated 2020, 2020, 2020, everything to 2020. Can I ask for an update on this, please, like a status report on the findings of this audit and what has been done, if these goals have been accomplished, and what has been done to improve the efficiency internally of the department?
Chair, I seek your leave to defer to the President to address the member's question.
Okay. On page 32, we sought to give you an update of the actual progress of the audits. Few 28. Yes? You will see in terms of the financial statement, closing and reporting audit, yes. The audit conclusion was 2, total findings 11, total audit recommendation 28. We've completed 16 and currently we are working on 12 of them. What we have attempted to do is take every audit finding and include it in our annual plans. We have a strategic plan, but notwithstanding the higher order goals, we are also guided by the findings of the audit department. So we make that integral to our creation of our audit plan, our annual plan, our monitoring of those annual plans. So it becomes part of NIDCO. So it's not a separate activity. And the management has been sensitized to the fact that these are not separate activities. This is what NIDCO is about, completing these and getting it back to where it ought to be. That's fundamental to us.
Madam President, for that response. And yes, I did see page 32, but I'm asking you, can you give me some specific information? Because here I'm seeing numbers. Just if you can give me specific things that you have done?
Ravi, to speak to the financial, because that was very critical to us,
Yes.
and that form a key part of
Yes.
our annual SALAP, Ravi.
Thank you.
Right. Yes, and I'll just move to this side. Yes. Yes. Yes, member, to answer your question. So if I could start from Appendix 6.1, this will be page 5 of 14, and I'll just go down the list. The Finance and Accounting Operating Procedures Manual is deficient. We are currently, this is something that we have started already. We are currently working on it. It's about 60 to 70% completed. One of the challenges that we had is that a lot of, as you will see from our strategic plan, there is where we were making efforts to improve our business processes. And because of that, we have had changes in operational processes, and therefore we had to update the manuals and so on to reflect that. But that is about, I would say, about 60 to 75% complete. Number 2, unreconciled.
Is there a new timeline? Because the old timeline here said September.
Right, we should have that. I would expect that to be completed by 31st of July.
Okay, this year.
Yeah, this.
Thank you. Go on, we can keep going through this
Right.
document.
Number 2, unreconciled general ledger accounts.
Yes.
This activity has been completed, and all updating of the procedures to avoid this from happening again has been implemented. Number 3, review process in place for determining whether provision should be made for bad and doubtful debts. This is an accounting standard that we had to comply with there's a new standard that replaces this, which is the what they term IFRS 9. That has been completed and submitted to the auditors. It became, our compliance was necessary for the 2019 audit. So this exercise was completed and given to the auditors.
Okay. Excellent.
Number 4, incorrect accounting treatment for assets that were revalued. This was done, and the necessary adjustments to the financials were taken into consideration in 2018 and 2019 also. So it's completed.
So this is completed.
Right?
Has something been put in place to ensure that this doesn't happen again?
Yes,
the incorrect
right,
accounting
and
for assets?
right. So what we did was not only take part of the corrective measures was to amend our procedures to ensure that we don't have a repeat of a lot of these things. So the necessary procedures were put in place to avoid this from happening again. Number 5, errors and inconsistencies within the external package for 2018. For 2019, different methodology was used for the preparation of the audit package for the auditors. And based on the way that the audit flowed, I would say that this was successful.
Question, was the methodology, the change in methodology, was that a requirement of the auditor, the new auditor that came in at that time?
No, it was a NIDCO internally developed approach to ensure that we have a smooth audit.
Excellent, thank you.
Right, number 6, inadequate controls over fixed assets. This is about 80% complete. It is a two-tier action plan that we had to utilize for this. One is where the finance department is playing a more integral role in verification of new assets. And 2, it was where we had to physically correct the fixed assets in ledger. We spent a lot of time in 2022 doing this, and the correcting of the ledger is currently ongoing. We should have this ready by at least the 31st of August 2022. So I would put this at about 75% complete. Number 7, inadequate controls over access to data information. This will be done by 31st of July. One of the reasons this wasn't completed as yet is that we recently had changes to our operating system where we went to the to Microsoft 365. We wanted to ensure that those teething issues from the implementation of this system was overcome before we make any major changes. And also we want to complete the 2019 audit to ensure that the information on the servers and so on are not affected by the changes that we will make going forward. Number 8, no distinction made between accounting treatment of capital expenditure and operating expenditure. Again, this was a change to our operating process. There's a verification process that goes on at the month-end level where the financial statements are reviewed to ensure that, one, the assets that are acquired are not in error put into repairs and maintenance and so on. So there's a verification at the finance department level and also at the facilities level. And those procedures so far has been successful in identifying any misallocation of expenditure.
Ask you, has there been any situation where it has happened subsequent to putting this into place?
Yes, there are times where there is a misidentification of assets. Well, not assets, it's mainly to do with the vessels, where we change out certain parts, and well, not parts, but certain key equipment. The issue being that when the vessel came, we had an entire vessel. Now you have parts, equipment that you're changing out. And we took the approach that if we put aside just the value, we wanted to ensure that there was a custodian check done to ensure that there was appropriate disposal and replacement of the equipment and so on. So that is the major issue that we have to look out for, but the process that we have in place so far, I would say, has been successful. Right, number 9, ineffective controls over petty cash process. This has been completed, and we are actually doing a second level of internal control to ensure that this doesn't happen again. That is currently ongoing. This should be completed by 30th of June.
On that, please, because throughout this document, I did see references to the petty cash
Right.
and the ineffective controls over the petty cash. Can I ask how was that brought to your attention? What really put a spotlight on that for you?
Right. This was a result of an internal audit exercise conducted by the internal audit department at the time. This actual issue refers to the audit period 2017 to 2019. From then to now, a lot of the corrective measures have been put in place. And in terms of limited the number of departments that have petty cash and so on, and also the frequency of the reconciliation process. As I said earlier, we are actually currently implementing additional level of internal control to ensure that we do not have a repeat of this issue, where we are using pre-printed petty cash vouchers and pre-numbered petty cash vouchers to account for all transactions.
I'm not going to call the name publicly, but I saw that there's a name here for somebody who was unable to account for a very, I guess, nominal, but it's not that person's money anyway, a nominal amount of money, a minimal amount of money, sorry.
Right.
Were there other instances of other persons
No.
like
no.
that? It was just that one
Yes,
minuscule thing?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I'll go on to number 10, bank reconciliation issues. This matter has been addressed and the procedures corrected to avoid any reoccurrence of this. Again, it is where we are reconciling the bank accounts on a monthly, every month. And we also have a 3-tier check between the person preparing, reviewing, and then a final sign-off by myself. So that ensures that it's done on a timely basis.
Mr. Siraram, for that very comprehensive response. So would it be safe to ask, therefore, that the latest date you gave me was August 31st, 2023 for one of the items here?
Right.
So would it be safe to say that we can be furnished by December this year with an update, a status update on this, on
Yes.
these matters here, the internal audit?
Yes,
Yes.
we could provide that.
Thank you. Now, I asked about the internal audit. Chairman, can I continue? Before I went on to the strategic plan, and I want to compliment you. Strategic plan is 2021 to 24? Yes? Okay. Now, I noticed that you've identified the weaknesses of your strat plan on page 27 in your SWOT analysis of your strategic plan. And I just want an update, please, on what efforts you're going to try, because we're in 2023 and the strat plan goes until 2024, of course, subject to extension, updates, etc. But can you just tell us a little bit about these weaknesses? Because, I mean, the weaknesses are things like an underdeveloped information management systems, and this strat plan would have been done before COVID, I suspect, and COVID would have changed the way a lot of technological and online work is done. So can I get some updates or some information rather on the weaknesses that I identified here, and something such as inadequate workspace to support current and future needs, and unstructured improvement of operational practices. So can we speak to these weaknesses here, please?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we'll defer to the President to answer the members' questions.
Okay. Based on an analysis of the strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, we actually created various goals, and you will see on page 26 the goals. So Ravi will have spoken in terms of the financial viability and the improving the financial and management accounting practices. In terms of inconsistent efforts at effectively harnessing the potential of its human resources, what we are trying to do is that, if we look at goals 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6, we have put actual strategies in place to deal with what we see as our weaknesses. In addition to the strategies that we've put KPIs that measure the performance.
Right.
So we do first we do monthly reviews as a management team. Then we do quarterly reviews to make sure that the strategies that we've put in place are being implemented. And we've done that. The strategic plan would speak to 3 years, but we've broken it down in annual plans.
Yes.
So each annual plan comes with its own action plan and the KPI, so that we monitor each one, how we improve each one of those. In terms of let's say, the information management system, we have actually gone to create a completely revised document management system where we are taking note of all the improvements in technology available, where we want to go in terms of digital transformation, what the current ability of the organization, items like that. And we have actually created a document management system that speaks to both electronic files and hard copy files. So each one of our goals here reflected in our work performance. I don't know if that's...
No, that... Thank you. I find that to be satisfactory, because I did see the KPIs and the goals listed here, but I just needed to hear what was in place for that. Mr. Chairman, I would stop at this point, and I look forward to my second round of questioning. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. George, I'd like you to clarify a couple of things to me. You spoke about is it a company called Matrix, or is it a consultancy called Matrix?
Company.
A company. Okay. They have a contract with NIDCO. Is it for management and maintenance?
Yes, we procured that company through tendering. So we had issued a tender, and they were successful So they have been given, a 2-year contract in the first instance with an opportunity to renew for a further year. So in all, if they do well, it will be a 3-year contract. And in there, we have, because of crewing was one aspect or one component. So those 6 or so persons per vessel that dealt with crewing. And there are 3 other persons, the superintendent, a marine electrical engineer, and a marine mechanical engineer. They are land-based or shoreside based. So they can treat with issues that occur on any of the vessels. So they will get the requests coming through to them from the marine crew or from the crews on the vessels, and then they will put things in place to have the repairs and so done.
Okay. What is the value of this contract?
Mr. Chairman, I will have to check that out. I don't have that figure.
Do you have a copy of the matrix contract?
We do, yes. We have a vessel management contract.
Can you make a copy available to us?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman.
The value of the contract would be contained in that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So you can make that available, right? What is the entire, the total number of personnel outside of the 5 persons that you identified earlier on as the key, the captain, and what is the total complement on each vessel, inclusive of those people who are managing and maintaining? What's the total number?
Yes, on average, those vessels, they have a safe, what they call a safe manning crew of 18 persons.
18?
Yes, so the other persons are sourced locally.
Okay, and how are they sourced? Are they, do you have, they're employed by NIDCO directly, or how do we go about recruiting these people?
Yes, so we have ads. We also have a pool of, because you have some called what? Manpower. What do you call them? Seamen. Yes, able-bodied seamen. All right. There's a tier of able-bodied seamen, they are called. We have a pool of people in that category to whom we give temporary employment. So let's say a vessel might have about what, 8 or 10? Or? Yeah. So about 10 able-bodied seamen from that complement of 18. So we'll have a pool of them, operating for 8 or so months, and then we will rotate them, right? And by doing that, we are able to employ a larger subset of people, in addition to dealing with the time off and time. Well, yeah. So that is how we have gone ahead doing that, managing that aspect of it.
Now, those people who are on board to carry out services and make up the 18 minus the 6, what kind of training program is in place before they actually begin their duties or their tour of duties? Do you have a program of training of the personnel that you employ? And who does it?
All right. Those persons, they all come with specified training certificates and type-rated certificates as well. So in order to be, let's say, a captain, or well, a captain is high. Let's say a second engineer, one has to have certain certification. So those 6 persons, say, from maritime would have those certification.
Right. Okay.
Or local persons, what they need to have.
They will also have certification specific to their trade. So the able-bodied seamen will have, the OS will have. But specific to the boat, when they come on the boat, Matrix is responsible for what we call type rating them. So they are trained specifically to operate the boat.
And what about terms and conditions? You have supplied that to us, right? The terms and conditions of those persons who are engaged outside of the contract that you mentioned, Mr.
Terms and
Herbert
conditions,
George,
yeah.
which will come? What about the rest of persons?
We shall so do, sir.
All right,
Chairman.
you'll also make that. There are
You want
some,
the terms and conditions of the others? All 18, well, whatever. Yeah.
so how would you rate the level of performance thus far by the top echelon in terms of matrix in the maintenance and management of those two vessels?
It is good. Our only concern, if at all, is that we are not having fast enough, technology or transfer to locals, because eventually we want to be able to hand it over to locals. So that's our only concern. But yes, their performance is satisfactory.
I'm happy you raised that, because that transference of the skill sets, the knowledge, the technology to locals, so that like 5 years, 7 years, 6 years, we can wean ourselves away from these persons who are now conducting, manning, and negotiating the seas at this time, and put those jobs in the hands of nationals. Is there a plan that NIDCO has for that transition?
We are intentional about doing that. As to whether we have, because what the plan should entail right now is that we should have people on the vessel now, locals, shadowing those, let's say, 6 persons that we have from Matrix. And of course, there's a cost involved. So we have not yet developed to that stage, but basically that is where we should go. We have had 1 or 2 persons who have that sort of inclination, mechanical engineers or whatever available. So we have taken on 1 or 2 to just put on the vessel to shadow those persons there. And even the show side team, like but that is not nearly good enough, to where we want to go. But it will have to be funded, Chairman.
Is there a relationship between the Port Authority and NIDCO? And explain to us, what is the relationship?
We do have a cordial working relationship, but in terms of managing the vessels, no, they do not feature in that. If we want advice or whatever, we have that facility that we can speak with them, but no, they do not manage those vessels. What they would have managed would be the Spirit and the Express. Well, the Express has been sold off, but the Spirit is the one they're responsible for right now.
Chair, let me just make a quick intervention. Mr. George, with respect to transfer of knowledge, right, I'm familiar with the work permit process, and part of the work permit submission to the Ministry of National Security, when you are bringing an expatriate, in my experience in the energy sector, you would have had to submit a transfer of knowledge plan in terms of being able to get the work permit granted. So I'm wondering if that is something that NIDCO may have missed in that that transfer of knowledge plan, whether this person is here for 2 years or 3 years in this specific technical position, that some sort of training program that you would have had to tell the ministry that, look, within 3 years, this knowledge will be transferred and we may not need this person beyond that. Only if your transfer of knowledge program has hit a start somewhere, then you would have asked for 6 months again or 1 year. Is that something that you looked at from the application of the work permit for the expatriate technology person or technical person? Did you look at that?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to defer to the President.
Yes.
Probably better able to.
I'm not quite aware that we actually did a transfer of knowledge plan. Why I say that, because one of the fundamental goals under safe and reliable maritime asset is the development of this plan. We are actively engaging Matrix with our people to develop this plan. So I'm almost certain we would not have delivered that to the Ministry of National Security as yet.
I know for sure that it is a requirement, having done it in the past, that they look specifically that if I am bringing in a specific technology or technologies that the skill is not available on the island, we must show that the transfer of skill, which is probably something that you should really look at if it is not in place, to make sure that our nationals will benefit from that transfer of knowledge and we could become, very fully independent in terms of our operations going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Herbert, George, the persons who are part of the contract under the name Matrix, they all have permits, do they not?
Mr.
Right.
Chairman, they do.
And based on what my colleague is saying, and it's something that we'll have to investigate, as to what are the criteria and or conditions required when a company, whether it's NIDCO or some other company, is approaching the Ministry of National Security for work permits for individuals. As my colleague is saying, but we have to do the research to verify it further, so that at the end of the day, we want to make sure that everything was done in accordance with the law, right? And we may have, upon our investigation, if it turns out to be what my colleague is saying, we may have to recommend to NIDCO to look at this matter with a sharper focus, in the context of ensuring that that transference of knowledge, right, to nationals of TNT is in fact achieved. So I just thought that I should let you know that's an area we need to pay attention to. The other matter I just want to go on to briefly is this. I think that you did a manpower audit some time ago. Am I right?
Yes, Chairman, we did.
Right. And that manpower audit revealed that you were overstaffed.
Correct.
Am I right? Okay. Now, could you explain or share with this committee what is the organization's current staff complement?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm just trying to locate the page because I think we spoke to that in one of our answers. I think we moved from 160 something. Yes, I think we moved from 160 something to 90 something, but I'm trying to just get a page, Mr. Chairman, just give your indulgence. So page 6. All right, so. Okay, Mr. Chairman, so at the bottom of page 6, we are advising here that we move from establishment of 163 employees in 2016 to 94 employees in 2022.
Right. So, okay. What would you consider, based on your manpower audit, to be the optimal staffing level in this particular, in the context of the experience that you have had? You have a manpower audit, you move from 163 to 94. Okay. Is that what we would call the optimal staffing level required by NIDCO to carry out its functions, objectives, and goals at this time, or within the next 2 years, given that plan that we spoke about a short while ago?
Mr. Chairman, it is adequate. I don't know whether I can describe it as optimal based on our work program now. And should that increase significantly, then we'll have to go back to the HRAC and so to seek their permission to add to that manpower tally.
Now, can you identify for us which areas at the time were identified as being overstaffed?
It is difficult, Mr. Chairman. It was across the board. So we had loads and loads of, let's say, drivers. We had loads of, at one stage, we had about 8 or 9 or so legal officers. We had which one that comes to mind here? Well, engineering was just teaming over with bodies, you know. So we did have quite a number of persons we thought they were not maybe earning their keeps, and it was just too many for the work that we had.
All your workers are on contract, are they not?
They are all on contract.
So you don't have a pension plan in your establishment?
No, we don't. What we do have, all workers are given gratuity. So they get 20% of their gross salary that is paid to them as gratuity. So if we have a worker with a works contract, a 3-year work contract, at the end of that period, whether or not, well, even if he or she is renewed, they are paid 20% of whatever they worked for during that previous period of 3 years. So that's what is used to maybe compensate for the absence of something like a pension plan.
Now, as it relates to persons who are on contract, right? There is a category called non-essential in your manpower audit, or is there?
No, Minister, we don't.
You have no.
No, we don't have that.
Okay, so right now you have 94 persons who we can describe as being on contract. Am I right?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Now, do you have those persons who currently occupy offices within NIDCO? Would you indicate to us is there a non-renewal of contracts over any particular period, or is it, for instance, something that is determined by the management? So let's say I come in and I'm in a particular position, I get a 3-year contract, but is that contract subject to short notice termination, like 1 month's notice? So can I sign for 3 years or 2 years? And then at the same time, if you're not happy with my performance, can you give me 1 month's notice? And then I go, or the 3-year contract lasts for the period? I just want to find out.
All right, let me try, Mr. Chairman, to unpack this. So you're given a 3-year contract, and at the end of every year, there is an appraisal done. And of course, it is recorded in your file. So if, the first year you were not you didn't perform too well, that is brought to your attention, and the individual is given, pointers as to what he or she needed to do to improve. If that continues, that is to say, your poor performance continues, that will set the ground for our not renewing your contract at the end of the 3-year period. And there is a procedure. So 2 months, I think, 2 or 3, 2 months before the end of that contract period, the employee, that is, will indicate to the employer whether he or she is willing and to continue in employment with us, with NIDCO. NIDCO will reply to tell that individual whether NIDCO is minded to renew the contract, so the individual gets an idea as to what will happen. If NIDCO does not agree or does not intend to renew the contract, then the contract is not renewed, and that is it. During the period, though, NIDCO will not terminate you. Well, as I say, will only terminate you with cause. So lack of performance will not necessarily lead to termination. We'll point out to you what you needed to do to improve your performance. But if it becomes chronic and you just couldn't be bothered, that's a different thing. But we'll only terminate you during that period with cause.
Okay. Now, you had 163. So we are talking about roughly over 70 persons being, let's say, being severed or being terminated. Did anyone took the company to court? Or are you in court for any of these termination?
No, Chairman.
Everybody left happy?
Well, yes, they were. And it's how we did it. I mean, we did not just come in one fell swoop and just get rid of 70 persons. That would have immediately triggered the retrenchment requirements. So we did not do that. For the most part, we use natural attrition, non-renewal of contracts, things like that, and to sort of get rid of people. And sometimes the non-renewal will be maybe limited. Is it to 4 or 5 persons? I think something like that. So we stayed within the law, and we over a period of time achieved the objective of reducing the number of workers.
Right. So in terminating, as you said, under the law, you didn't retrench.
No.
You didn't retrench.
No.
It's just attrition.
And either that and or refuse to renew contracts.
Okay, I understand. Right. Okay, I'll ask my colleague, Mrs. Deonarine, to step in at this time.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning again, everyone. So I'm going through the material here, and Mr. George and Miss Farmer, I see that the size of the board itself is 7 persons, and the size of the executive management team is 8 persons. But they're not all here. How come?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I was not aware that they were all supposed to be here. In fact, I was given a sheet to indicate who are the persons who will be here. And that sheet had a table with about 3 or so rows. So I took it that it was limited to that. But had I known that, I would have invited them and they all would have been here. But I'm sorry about that.
Okay, I'm asking that question because I have a lot of questions with respect to the engineering and program management. And I see that person is not here, but I'm sure who is here would be able to answer these questions to the best of your ability. So I noticed in your submissions that you referred us to Appendix 10, which gave rise to all the litigation matters that are currently pending, right? And I did a quick tally while the conversation was being had, and a total of, I've calculated that there's a total of $172 million in litigation, tied up in litigation at present, correct me if I'm wrong, for the damage of property and for land acquisition. Now, I know a lot of these matters are before the court. Some are completed, some and some are still before the court. But could you give us some insights as to how exactly we end up in a situation with so many challenges or litigation issues for damage to property and the land acquisition? Because to me, from my experience, what that means that there's some challenge in contract negotiation with the necessary parties or the necessary contractors. But I would like to hear further from you what exactly could have caused us to reach the position where, we have about $172 million tied up in litigation. And then we have our revenues for NIDCO is on average about $32 million annually. So I would like to hear your insights, please.
Right. The land acquisition issues deal with person interested who whose properties have been acquired, but they have not been paid. So they have gone to court to seek payment. All right. So a lot of those things are due to that. Damage to property. If I remember correctly,
Mr. George?
Yes, sir.
If I may. Why were they not paid?
Why were they not paid?
Yes.
All right.
And who was supposed to pay them? Because remember, your fees is what allow you to exist, your management fees, and live, and your supervisory fees. So would that payment for land acquisition come from the Ministry of Works and Transport through an allocation, and that allocation can be accessed by NIDCO? I'm just trying to get an understanding of how you are acquiring on behalf of the state with the support of the valuation commissioner or the commissioner of valuation. And then you are telling us that the people have taken NIDCO to court because they have not been paid. So I'm trying to clarify, why have they not been paid? And whether you have an allocation from the state, from the government, to access those funds. So if you acquire my land and you have to pay me, you have a pool of funds established that is coming from your line ministry or from directly from the Ministry of Finance, as the case may be. Could you explain to us how the process works?
Chair, before the chairman answers, could I just supplement your question? And because from the draft estimates of expenditure, I realize there are a lot of loans that come under NIDCO. So in answering the chairman's question and also my initial question, could you explain to us whether any of these loans are assigned to the payment of these court matters or these monies that are being owed to persons?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, to answer your question, I don't know of any loans that we have that directly address payment for properties acquired. But most of those properties, they have to do with the Solomon Hotra Highway, the extension of the highway. And what happened was that, well, properties would have been acquired using the Section 3 and Section 4. What it was said private treaty under the what was it again? The shadow of acquisition of what? Of land acquisition, right? So what will happen, and especially the properties where there was just land. So Section 3 will be given, a Section 4 will be given. There'll be a negotiated settlement as to what is the value of your property, and the roadworks will continue until your, will enter your property and carry out the roadworks. I'm talking about the properties that were just land only. So the state now owes you for the property that has been acquired. That agreed settlement will interest will accrue on that agreed settlement from the day the state entered your property. So, so that was the case. About, was it 2019 or so, the state had certain questions that they asked about the value of some of those properties, and coming out of that, there was this commission of inquiry that was determined to sit to inquire into those things. Well, that has happened slowly. It's only now we are hearing that the commission is about to sit in judgment, or not judgment, but to investigate the matter. During that period, there was no, there was maybe a freeze. There was a hold on payments to persons interested for their land where the land was acquired previously. So those persons have ended up not receiving compensation for the lands that the state acquired. And it is those persons who are taking us to court to get settlement of their properties. I must also add that there was, well, maybe I shouldn't talk about that, but there were a few large properties, high value ending, that there was a settlement in terms of, there's an agreement, but the agreement was just exorbitant. Some of those persons involved, they have actually taken us to court to seek compensation, and that is where you had not just land, but establishments on the land, and it was huge, you know. So that would have contributed to the $100 and something million that you see. But you know, I know from where I sit, at least 3 of them, very large ones, are being contested now in court. And what is being contested, not so much delay in payment as it is questioning the value, how that value was arrived at and things like that, right? So that is where we are today.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to move on to the issue of the audit findings and risk grading on the engineering and program management process. This, I think, is Appendix 6.4. And this is quite concerning, it's quite worrying, where we have a very high risk rating in the audit findings for project management manuals being incomplete. Project charter was not done for 100% of EPM projects, which is the engineering and program management projects. There's lack of accountability for Construa OAS Limited contractor for materials. There's insufficient monitoring of crucial contract clauses. There's also, for all EPM projects within the audit sample, the contractor and consultant performance evaluations were either not done or were done were inadequate to effectively measure the performance of the parties. So I think this is quite concerning. So would you like to share some insights on these? Because this was actually done based on your submission. This was done in May 2021 and February 2022, which is quite recent. And it seems as if this is an accumulation of problems that this is a finding of problems that were accumulating for a period of time.
So we were there, and this guy comes up with his bailiff, and he came to to possess to the concrete plant that OAS left on site. There is nothing that we could have done. So a lot of those things came out of that. So when so there's nothing that we could have done to prevent that. That's one. There's something about charter? Oh, sorry.
Before you continue,
Yes?
through you, Chair, Mr. Chairman, just correct me if I am wrong. From my understanding, isn't NIDCO's responsibility to oversee these contractors in the works that they are doing?
The contractors now?
So, for example, OAS Limited during that period of time, wasn't NIDCO's role to oversee or to have some sort of project management involvement, which involves overseeing the works done by OAS, who within either the Ministry of Works or NIDCO is responsible for oversight?
Well, the structure was a FIDIC engineer in the person of ACOM, and NIDCO was like a client's rep who will oversee ACOM's work. Yes, that was what obtained during OAS's time.
So correct me again if I'm wrong. How then is it possible that OAS could have left this site for a long period of time and it didn't come to the attention of anyone?
But it's not that it didn't come to the attention. When they closed for that year at Christmas time, so the main players went back to wherever at Christmas time, and they would have left maybe watchmen in place. But those watchmen were no match for these bailiffs and whatever who were turning up to seize equipment and or material left by OAS in settlement of the court judgments that they had.
Okay. All right. If I am to move to the other audit finding, this is audit finding 4, insufficient monitoring of crucial contract clauses for 3 out of 9 projects reviewed, right? And we see here 3 projects are singled out. This is on page 17 of 53 in appendix 6.4. We have the 3 projects I'm referring to are Kunapo, Southern Maid Road, Sangrande, Toko Road, Breakfast Rivers, and design bill contract for Churchill Roosevelt Highway. And these contractors are General Earth Movers, Premium Maintenance Limited, and China Railway Construction. So what the auditor is saying here, and I need to say it out for the listening public, because remember, I have the benefit of the documents, but people who are viewing would not have the benefit of the document. The finding says the auditor did not find evidence that crucial contract clauses for time extensions were proactively and consistently monitored by project managers for 3 out of 9 contracts reviewed within the audit sample. According to the above, this could have translated to 110 days multiplied by 250,000, amounting to 27.5 million, but capped at 18.9 million in favor of the client, right? So I skipped a couple lines. And if we go back to the table, you have that the initial cost of these 3 projects, this is the project total before contingencies and VAT, was 218.4 million. And then you have a possible financial impact of 21.7 million. Who is negotiating these contract clauses? Because a contract clause says, in the event the contractor fails to complete the works or any of the schedules thereof within the limits of the or the extended time limits agreed upon, as more particularly set forth in the contract, liquidated damages shall be paid at a rate of $250,000 per calendar day. So I'm a little bit baffled about this, because to me, this does not seem to be in favor of the state and taxpayers whose monies are basically paying for these contracts.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we are talking here about $250,000 per day as liquidated damage. This is what it means. It says you pay $250,000 a day up to a maximum of $18 million. The $250 million a day, $250,000 a day, sorry, borders on a sort of unenforceable penalty. The thing about liquidated damage is not punitive. It is to compensate whichever party for a loss suffered. And in this one here, it had to do, I think, with the, was it the CUREP? The CUREP job. There is no way that the state could well, first of all, apply that liquidated damage and successfully get that liquidated damage. The question is, what is the loss to the state if the state did not get CUREP exchange today and it got it 2 weeks down the road? So we have noticed that these feel good, how do you call it, liquidated penalties. We have to revisit it. We can't just write that figure in the contract and feel, well, okay, yes, we have that sum of money there that we can claw back in the event of liquidated damage. So that is one of the reasons why it might have been flagged by the. That's why I said some of those things are not fatal. If you were to move now to collect from a contractor $250 a day on a roads contract that interchange that it didn't finish on time, you cannot be successful. It is what we call an unenforceable penalty, because liquidated damage is not supposed to be punitive. It is just put there to compensate you for loss suffered. And you have a difficulty to sort of prove that. All right, so all right, I don't know, well.
I just want to just correct one thing that perhaps you alluded to 2 weeks delay, and what is being said here is that in some instances one particular contractor was the overrun time was 540 days. That's more than a year.
Well, I don't know.
Right? So I mean, yeah. I would stop there, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Sure.
Oh, yes.
So, thank you, Chairman. Mr. George, just one question that I want to close off today. In your submission on page 9, where a query was asked in terms of, in NIDCO's opinion, what is preventing your organization from attaining its intended objectives, and you identified timeliness of client payment, value of NIDCO services, project sourcing. The question that I want to ask is, have any strategies been developed in terms or implemented to remedy these 3 items that you would have identified? And, if you have an idea of what may be the optimal amount of projects that NIDCO needs to pursue at any one time to be at that optimal setting in terms of resources, projects to execute, and so on. So that's, part A, part B, if you could answer that. Thank you.
I'll try, Mr. Chairman. The timeliness of client payment. Well, we have some negotiation to do. We have to negotiate, for example, increased fees. And our client is not too gung-ho about increasing our fees for services. And timeliness of payment is all a function of availability of funds. So, but we keep reminding the client that, listen, we need payment. And so we are more insistent in our reminder to our client, and every opportunity that we get to point to the fact that some additional fees might be the way to go. I mean, that has not, so we have not been successful with our negotiations yet, but this is where we have to focus. The other one about project sourcing, we are restrained there. We can't, as a wholly owned state company, we can't just go out and just source our jobs and get work to do. It has to come through the state. By that, all right. So, for example, we were approached by another arm of government to ask to assist with procurement. So, a MOU was done, and we are working now with that body to do some procurement for them. And I mean, that is not something that we went and solicit. They saw our ability, and maybe they saw what our process then, the integrity of it, and they thought they could have used us, and that is what is happening now.
Just one follow-up on that, Mr. Chairman. In terms of NIDCO as the government's choice to do some project management on constructions and so on, what specific skill set or expertise that NIDCO possesses that the state would come to you rather than go through another medium? What is it? Because I am saying if the state has invested heavily in an enterprise that is operating as efficient as you are, and have done some fantastic jobs over the last few years, why would I send it by anybody else and you're delivering? What is the trigger for that?
Mr. Chairman, I really don't like to blow my own trumpet. But what is NIDCO good about? Procurement, I think, we have stood the test of time. The process was, had integrity. You had people there, we acted fairly, we acted transparently, and over the years, and most of our jobs, they're done open tendering. Over the years, we have not had any problems with the awards and thing of contract. So it has been cleanly done. Given a job, and I don't know whether I can, but you have a combination of a board and the management. You have a lot of people on the board who are engineers and who have done things. So outcome is important. They will stick behind our, let's say, project engineers to ensure that things are done. Reports come to us, at board meetings, and we spend hours and hours going through what is presented before us and questioning, well, why is this thing taking so much time? Why can't it be done in a particular way? And getting after those persons to make the change, to give us the outcome that we require in a sort of timely manner. So I guess this is, and well, I don't want to be, I don't want to say that and to be reported. There's a policy which says what? Eyes in and fingers out. We will not in any way stand by, in the way of the management. The board will not tell we told the president that you are free to disregard anything the board tells you that is illegal. Anything the board tells you to do that is illegal. So given those two policies, we tend to work together as a team to drive the process. There might be other boards that might stick firmly to the belief that it has to be eye in and fingers out. Yes, completely.
We want to end the proceedings and to let you know that there would be matters that we'll pursue via a series of further questions to you and to the Ministry of Works and Finance if it becomes necessary. I would like to say that it has been a pleasure having you and the Ministry of Works and Transport officials, along with the Ministry of Finance Investment Division here today. And as I said, we look forward to communicating with you and the team as it relates to some other questions that we want to pursue, but time would not permit us to do so today. So I would not want to take up too much more of your time. And just again, on behalf of our committee, to thank you and your team for being here. And also I want to thank the officials from the Ministry of Finance for being here. So at this time, we will pause to allow you to take your leave. And we shall, as I said, be communicating with you via the Secretariat for further clarification on several areas that we may not have been able to execute today. So, Mr. George, thank you. And Ministry of Works and Transport, thank you. And Ministry of Finance, thank you. So you can now take your leave and you are excused.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having us. I should stand for two.